Coming up on this week's show is Commodore making another comeback.
Great news for Mortal Kombat fans.
And we chat with former Amiga Technologies Managing Director, Petro Tyschtschenko.
And the Retro Hour podcast is brought to you every Friday with our friends, our incredible sponsor at Bitmap Books. Now, of course, today we're going to be talking about the Amiga and a book of theirs I absolutely love. Commodore Amiga, a visual compendium. Now, new prints of this coming soon, and it details everything that we loved about the Amiga gaming scene, from the early days of stuff like Defender of the Crown to Barbarian, running through all those massive titles that we grew up playing, Cannon Fodder, Speedball, Worms, and weighing in at more than 420 pages. If you love Amiga gaming, this is an absolute love letter to it. You can check it out and the rest of their retro gaming collection at bitmapbooks.com. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 484, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And a very warm welcome to the podcast, a show that every single Friday celebrates all the wonderfulness about the incredible world of retro gaming and technology, brings you up to speed on what's been happening from over the last 7 days, and welcomes on more veterans of the industry to tell their story in an interview on the second half of the show. And while the rest of the gaming world has been getting all excited over the Nintendo Switch 2 over the last week, we tend to go a little bit more old school than that. Although I will say, kind of gutted I missed out on getting a Switch 2 on launch day. You guys know I've just been away on holiday for a kind of a long weekend away with my missus. Flew out there on a Switch 2 launch day on Thursday. Had an idea that I might be able to pick one up at the airport, but yeah, that was a kind of wishful thinking. So you guys know anyone that's managed to get hold of a Switch 2?
Other than YouTubers, which I haven't actually watched any videos on, nobody personally, to be honest. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting on. You know, I'm not as young as I used to be, and times have changed. But I don't feel like there's been any sort of like excitement or buzz.
I totally forgot it was coming
about
out.
It. I forgot until Dan mentioned it, and I did keep having these moments of like, I'm an adult, like with adult money, I could just go buy one if I really, really wanted to, like kind of thing. And I was just like, World Tour looks really, really fun, but it's essentially going to cost me the best part of 500 quid to play Mario Kart.
Yeah, there's not much out there to really qualify buying it so far, I don't imagine.
Yeah, so I was just like, oh, I won't grab it just yet, but I like the look of it. But then we've had this discussion before, like, I don't actually play my normal Switch that much.
Yeah,
so
I only do it on holiday, yeah. Last week I played it quite a lot in the hotel room on the plane, but yeah.
Yeah, what did you play?
A lot of retro games, actually, playing the Konami arcade stuff on there. A bit of Double Dragon. Yeah, played Mortal Kombat, as you guys know, which we'll talk more about soon, actually. Some big Mortal Kombat news coming up. Mortal Kombat 1 I was playing on the Switch. So, again, that is kind of my holiday console, a little handheld that I take away. So, I will upgrade to a Switch 2 at some point. I did see it did really well, though. 3.5 million units sold in just 4 days.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Which is massive for a launch. So, yeah, if you did manage to get one, they're saying it's probably the biggest console launch ever. So maybe you're right, Joe. Maybe we're just too focused in the retro stuff, me and you these days.
Maybe.
To pay attention to it. But
you know what? I save my money for retro gaming events. So, one that I'm going to soon is Nottingham Video Games Expo. I'm going to be hosting some of the panels on stage. And that's on the 26th and 27th of July at the Harvey Haddon Sports Village in Nottingham.
Yeah, that's like a huge event, isn't it, now in Nottingham? Like loads of traders there.
Yeah, it's been going on for like 3 or 4 years now, and quite established, which is good. And, it started to grow, actually. It's been in, I think it's 3 different venues, but it's turned into quite a big thing.
Yeah, then in August, you and I flying out to Retro Messe in Norway again. We're going to be at the massive Retro Messe event that's on in Sandefjord. 11 years now that's been running. We've been going for like the last 5 or so now.
Yeah, awesome event. Love that.
Yeah, bringing a special guest with us this year, Paul Drury from Retro Gamer. You'll know from the Christmas quiz. So I know a bunch of our patrons often attend Retro Messe. So it'd be nice to hang out with everyone there again. That's going to be happening on the 16th and 17th of August. So if you're attending any of these events, definitely come say hi. I'll put ticket links in this week's show notes. Now, of course, we have got another amazing guest again this week. Now, this is actually a really interesting one. Today, we're going to be talking to someone who was a big part of the Amiga history immediately after Commodore. Now, this is actually ties in really well because there is a big news story we'll be talking about in just a moment about this, because Commodore, the original company that brought us the Amiga, they went bankrupt in 1994. There was then a really drawn-out buyout process. It dragged on for 12 months. A load of companies were rumoured to be looking at Commodore and the Amiga, including Dell, I remember, were a name that were thrown in the hat. Samsung were one of them as well. Ended up being a German company called Escom, who were actually a really big PC manufacturer back in the 90s. Turned out they overexpanded a bit too quick, but at the time they did set up a new company called Amiga Technologies to basically get the Amiga back onto the market a year after Commodore went bust. And you might remember around that time, there was all these shops popping up around the UK.
Well,
I remember
they just bought Rumbelows, haven't they? So,
I was going to say that, my local Rumbelows, even in like the tiny town that I lived in, an
in
Escom
Nottingham,
shop.
I think we had 2 Escom shops as well. Yeah. So it's pretty mad. And like the thing about the Amiga buyout is really interesting because we've had obviously the UK perspective and stuff. This is the German perspective that we've got. And, you know, Escom being a German company, it's really interesting to get that from Petro Tyschtschenko. So Petro Tyschtschenko was previously the director of international logistics at Commodore. He also worked with Escom like in the early days when they were doing like the C64 and VIC-20. Of course, they didn't call it the VIC-20.
Yeah, because Vic means something rude in German.
Yes,
so
it did, yeah. So,
the Volks computer, they called it instead, yeah.
Yeah, and Petro was a kind of figurehead for this whole transition. So I was still faithful and hopeful for the kind of Amiga, and it went on through Escom, and then it went on through Gateway, and the remaining kind of figurehead there was Petro, who became the president of Amiga, and he went through these 2 companies and the buyout. So it's really interesting to hear his perspective because he's wrote a book, but it's not been translated into English. So, you know, we have to consider that English isn't Petro's first language in this interview. And it's just really interesting to hear that. And I'm just so happy that he's come on the show and kind of put his, you know, story out there.
Yeah, I am as well, because I remember, I mean, obviously, before Commodore went bust, I'd always see like David Pleasant and Colin Proudfoot, who were the joint MDs of Commodore UK in the magazines. They were kind of the faces of the company. And then when Escom took over, it was always Petro that you'd see in the Amiga magazines as kind of the face of the Amiga.
Even in the operating system manuals as well. So you'd have Petro at the front, like with a little statement and stuff. And yeah, even they had Amiga songs at one point, and Amiga pants and underwear. And,
did you buy some
Coca-Cola.
Amiga pants, Ravi? Don't like them.
Oh, I wish I did. Yeah, I wish,
He's wearing them right now.
That,
Yeah, he wears them every day.
that sweet Amiga Cola.
So, I mean, I remember that when Commodore went bust, that bankruptcy case, it dragged on for 12 months. No one expected it to last that long. And then when Escom came along as well, like, who the hell are these people?
Yeah, because Viscorp were involved as well.
There's loads of companies that were. Yeah, so I mean, it was a really troubled time for the Amiga. Unfortunately, Escom themselves only lasted another 12 months, so any plans they had were kind of scuppered. You know, all they managed to do really was relaunch Amiga 1200 and the 4000, which, you know, is cool to see them back out there again. But I've always had some questions for Petro, kind of like what the plan was.
Yeah,
of course, I remember they did release like some images. It was like a prototype Amiga they came up with.
They produced the Amiga Walker. There was also, with Gateway, there was the multimedia convergence computer. I think that's what it was called, the MCC. And I think it's great hearing Petro's perspective because it may be different from what we've heard before, or even, you know, I was a kind of Gateway fan and a fan of the Escom takeover because I still had faith and hope, and it's interesting to hear his kind of opinion on it because he's very frank in this interview.
There is some very eye-opening stuff as well. Because one of the questions I had for him was, you know, because Commodore were working all this really cool stuff before they went bankrupt, and I asked him, like, you know, why didn't Escom ever kind of do anything with that? And he just comes out and says, look, you know, they're a sales company.
Yeah, they just wanted to resell it.
Yeah, they didn't have no plans to develop it further, which is really interesting to hear. I've not heard that kind of admitted before, if you like. So, yeah, I think, you know, I haven't read an interview with Petro for probably over 25 years. So it is really interesting. I think at this stage as well, where it's been so long, like you said, he's very frank about it because, you know, there's no harm now, and just kind of tell him what happened from his perspective. So, yeah, going to be a really interesting one, you know, if you're a fan of Commodore and the Amiga. Petro Tyschtschenko, our special guest, he's on the way in around half an hour from now. Now, I did mention in the news this week, there is some big news for Commodore fans about someone who might be making a Commodore comeback, or at least attempting to. More on that coming up soon. But let's go through the headlines from the world of retro from over the last week. What we're starting with this week then, Joe?
Oh, you know what? You know when I've done the news when there's a spooky story in here.
A Resident Evil one.
The noise you make when Resident Evil comes up.
Yeah, I always go, ooh. Yeah, man. So you know what? Often we know we kind of like, what's the word? We bounce some of these stories to the patrons only stories, you know, because I love talking about Resident Evil, Castlevania, Silent Hill, etc. But this is one that I really, really wanted to talk about. So I found this really, really interesting because I'd never really given it much thought before. So somebody has found, how do I explain this? So you know the Resident Evil 2 front cover for the European version and the Japanese version? Very famously, Resident Evil 2, this is the original version from 98, so 27 years ago. The red writing with the black box with the silhouette of like a black and white zombie face. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid and I saw that, like, it terrified me. But it really
still looks pretty creepy now, to be fair.
It's still pretty creepy to this day, and it really drew me into the game. Resident Evil 2 was the first Resident Evil I actually played and heard of. Now, about a year ago, we actually covered a story that somebody has been making, which is now out, a documentary all about the kind of lost George A. Romero script / film that never got made. George A. Romero being the famous zombie film director who did like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. In the late 90s, he was billed to, you know, direct and make a Resident Evil movie, and it never happened, and we got the Paul W.S. Anderson one. Somebody's made that into a documentary where they cover the script and they interview everybody who's still alive, you know, who was, you know, involved in making that film as far as it got. As part of that, one of the main guys behind that film, behind that documentary, is a guy called Brandon Salisbury. As part of making the documentary, he reached out to a makeup artist who was meant to work on the film, but also worked on the Japanese live action advert, which only ran in Japan for advertising Resident Evil 2, which George A. Romero did direct. So he directed like a 30-second Resident Evil 2 live action advert, which had Leon and Claire running around a police station, running from zombies and shooting and loading their guns and stuff, which never aired in the UK or anything. And as it turns out, the mask, the photo that was used in that picture, you know, the famous artwork for the Japanese game and the European game, was one of the zombies in the background of that advert. And
so that was a photo then of someone wearing a mask?
It was a photo of somebody wearing a mask, which they then massively overexposed to make it black and white, and they slapped it on the front cover of this game that went on to sell, like, you know, millions and millions of copies. But as far as I'm aware, nobody really knew the story behind the artwork. But what's really interesting is Brandon has now got that mask. So he reached out to this makeup artist, he explained the story to him, and then also sold a load of the original props to Brandon, including this mask, which unfortunately is now completely like yellowed. It's lost like all the color in it.
I was going to say 30 years later, it's actually creepier than ever.
Yeah, it's damn creepy if you look at it.
So, you know, I did a mask making course at university.
That's brilliant. I didn't know that.
Of course you did, Ravi.
I was in theatre,
That's fantastic.
like making props and designs, and they use like alginate and rubber on this. And usually the way that a mask like this would be created someone would lie there and then they'd stick all this rubbery substance on their face and straws up their nose and kind of create it. And it does look like it's been done like that, but also that's probably why the material's like, you know, very perished.
Yeah.
You know, fall into bits. It kind of looks like a naan bread.
Yes.
Kind of,
I wouldn't want to eat it.
Put me off having the curry this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, if you actually, there's a fantastic video on this. It explains it better than I do on Residents of Evil YouTube channel, where it's got segments from the documentary and explains a little bit more what the mask is and everything like that. But they've actually found, you know, the footage. They've got the footage of the mask, the photos being taken of it and stuff. And I think before they overexposed it and made it black and white is terrifying. It looks horrible, to be honest, the original. But I just found it a really fun, interesting story. And then what's really cool is Brandon is actually sending the mask as well as the other props that he's bought, which he's bought out of his own money. He's sending them to the Living Dead Museum, which is actually a museum in the Monroeville Mall dedicated to George A. Romero's original kind of like, of the Dead films. And the Monroeville Mall is where the original Dawn of the Dead was actually filmed.
Oh,
so
nice.
He's sending it out to there in Pittsburgh, I think it is, where it'll get displayed and everything, which I think is really, really cool. And it's just like, I know I'm obsessed with Resident Evil and stuff like that, but, it was a huge game and it still is a huge franchise. So I just found that really, really interesting.
Interesting story about the cover as well. Because I remember my brother had the Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation back in the day. I always remember looking at that cover. I was assuming it was just kind of hand drawn or maybe a model or something. I had no idea it was an actual photo.
Photo, yeah.
Cool to see the story.
Yeah,
and they also creepy prosthetics when they get old. I mean, you've probably seen the pictures of the models of like E.T.
Yes.
And stuff, how that kind of degrades after
Toggle
30,
from
40
Labyrinth
years.
and he's all like rotten. It's terrifying.
Yeah, they get extra creepy over time. So yeah, really interesting story. So if you want to check out the pictures and that video, I will link them in the show notes. Now, another story I imagine looks like one you put in the news this week, Joe. We know you love a bit of Time Crisis and a bit of Point Blank. Those games we used to always play in the arcades. The thing about playing them at home, not quite the same. Using a controller, you really need a light gun for these. But it turns out something that we have covered on the podcast before could be the answer to your problems.
I actually sent this.
Yeah. It was actually Ravi.
Yeah, I'm also a Time Crisis and Point Blank fan, and a fan of light guns, which this one looks like a really nice one, actually. But it's got a pretty interesting story behind it, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is called the Game. I imagine like G-AIM, Game.
Yeah.
A play on words, a light gun. That apparently they were planning on kickstarting, but it looks like there might be a bit of a problem with that. But we'll talk about that in a minute. First of all, what's the background on this then? What is it?
So it's a light gun that's meant to be coming to Kickstarter, which works on modern TVs. And the idea behind it is it has a high resolution camera within the gun and built-in AI. So it automatically collaborates itself, like sets up the calibration with any kind of like HD modern TV. And there's meant to be like no messing about or anything like that. It is literally, it boasts, it is plug and play. You plug it in.
Yeah, so it does it on the fly. So as you're kind of using it, it starts to calibrate it and change. And it's got a little TV unit as well with Time Crisis installed on it. So you just kind of plug it in your telly.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that as well because I find that interesting as well. So as Ravi just pointed out, it's Time Crisis is like the main kind of game that they're selling on it, isn't it? Like they've used the Time Crisis logo all over the little unit. So they've got the little black unit that is what plugs into your TV. And then you get the guns, and that's the basic package, and it comes with Time Crisis on it. But that's the very basic package. You can then get the premium package, which will then have Time Crisis, Point Blank, and then Steel Gunner 1 and 2. And I think, and then it also comes with the pedal. You know how in Time Crisis you press the pedal to jump out and shoot.
Oh, yes.
And reload. And I was a bit like, that's a bit of a cop-out. Like, I just feel like those games should be on even the basic package. Like, the unit itself doesn't change or anything. It's just the games that are preloaded onto it change. And I just found that a bit strange. I understand buying the premium one, you then get the pedal with it and you have to pay more. And then there's an ultimate package where you get 2 setups, so you get 2 guns, 2 pedals, etc. But I just thought it was a bit of a strange choice to just make the basic package just comes with Time Crisis on it. I thought that was a bit strange. But as Dan pointed out to us before we started recording, it did say like this is officially endorsed by Namco, and the Kickstarter was meant to launch in the last week of June. But now if you click on the Kickstarter, it says that the Kickstarter has been removed due to intellectual property dispute, meaning it's currently unavailable. So,
well, I've had a look on there. They've actually put this must have just happened as we record this because about an hour ago they posted on their X page saying, you may have noticed our Kickstarter pre-launch is currently unavailable. We expect it to be back shortly. Approval pending. But to reassure all of our followers, the issue is down to a simple phrase used in the Kickstarter page text. We were asked to slightly alter our wording, and we're happy to accommodate this on our Kickstarter page. Okay. The hardware and licensing is all in good standing, so apparently Bandai Namco have fully licensed it. It's all on board. And we're expecting the Kickstarter campaign to launch as planned on June 24th. and we'll update you as soon as the page is back. So it looks like maybe just some technicality with Kickstarter kind of AI kind of picking up words or something on there by the looks of it.
Okay.
And I think it looks decent. The gun looks good. It's not your Guncom, but it's pretty decent. I'm not a massive fan of the colour, which is there's a bright blue version, but also there seems to be a grey version as well.
I quite like the blue one. That was quite nostalgic to me.
Also, it's got a cable on it as well, the gun, so it's not a wireless one. I made that mistake the other day of buying a webcam thinking it was wireless, and then the picture had just edited all the wires out. I was like, oh no.
Wireless webcam. What year are you living in, Ravi?
That's
35.
What was futuristic.
But yeah, I mean, for the price they're rumoured to be selling these at, they reckon around the $100 mark. I can see stuff like wireless and that is all going to add expense to it. And I think often with these, I mean, latency can be an issue as well. So I think having it wired probably is a bit of a safer bet.
It does depend how it works, you know. Yeah, and they look decent.
Yeah, and the fact, it works with modern displays as well. So that was always a downside before that, the old ones would only work with CRTs. So I think, for this price, are you guys interested in this? You think this is something you'll pick up?
I would have been more interested if it came with more games. I feel like £100. I was like, okay, that's a cool selling, but like a cool price for a light gun that actually works on modern TVs. And then I was like, oh, it only comes with Time Crisis, and it's not plug and play. As far as I know, it's not plug and play with just like PS2 or whatever kind of thing.
It's a little mini console, really. Isn't it?
And I was a bit like, I don't know, that's pretty cool, but it's a lot of money.
Without recoil as well. Like if it had recoil, I love that. Making noise. And with the old Time Crisis arcades, that was awesome. Yeah,
I'd rather them come out with a little dongle or something that you can plug into your TV to make the old ones work or something,
But saying that, I'd have to have a play on it and see.
Yeah.
I think it's one that, it might be amazing when you try it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Try before you buy.
And I imagine this is probably just standard kind of ARM hardware, in that little console box. Rather you'd have that hacked in a week.
Yeah, true.
I bet I'd have Crime Patrol running on there. All the Mad Dog McCree.
I did think, everybody's going to have this hacked within a day with their own games on it, to be fair. So if that's pretty easy, then I'd probably pick one up.
No pricing confirmed as yet, but like I said, we're rumoured to be around the $100 mark, which I think is pretty decent for the hardware. So fingers crossed to get those problems sorted out with Kickstarter when it launches end of this month. I'll put a link to that in this week's show notes. Now, this is another story we've been seeing absolutely everywhere this week, and to be fair, it is quite a big one. This is from a YouTuber who we've had on the podcast a couple of times in the past. Really cool guy. This is Christian Simpson, also known as Perifractics Retro Recipes. Now, he's been on YouTube probably knocking on around a decade now. Makes a lot of Commodore and Amiga related videos, and he's actually made a video in the last week that has definitely stirred up quite a bit of reaction. Now, he does say at the start of this video that, again, I'll put in the show notes so you can watch, about half an hour long, isn't it? At the beginning, it kind of talks about his love for Commodore as a brand. And one thing that he's always wanted to do is kind of see Commodore returned to people that should probably have the rights to use it. 'Cause it's one of those brands, said at the start, the original company went bankrupt in 1994. I had a look at the timeline of kind of who's owned it. So Commodore went bust 94. Escom in Germany bought it a year later for $14 million. They went bust in 96. Late 90s, Tulip Computers in the Netherlands brought the rights. 2005, they sold it to someone called Jeronimo Media Ventures. 2010, they transferred it to a company called Commodore Licensing BV and Asia Rim, who then had a loan default in 2013. Commodore Holdings BV, Asia Rim's lenders, take ownership of it. 2014, Aladdin Holdings quietly acquires the trademarks from them. And then in 2021, a company called Commodore Corporation BV in the Netherlands are now the current legal owner of all 47 active Commodore trademarks. So that is quite the journey over the last 30 years of this brand that was obviously so big back in the day. But now Christian, he's on a bit of a mission. Basically, he wants to buy the rights to Commodore and relaunch it as a community-driven effort So they can basically license the official brand to any projects that come along that people want to officially brand as Commodore. He mentioned stuff like, the Mega 65 in there, a lot of these kind of independent kind of, community efforts. It would be very nice if they had the official branding on there. So he's done this half an hour long video. First quarter of an hour of it's really his nostalgia. But then actually turns out he's been talking to the official rights holders. He's calling this the biggest undertaking of his career. And he was basically saying it would be cool if we had a way where companies and small projects could actually have a way to license the official Commodore branding. And they've said to him, well, look, it seems like you guys are actually way more into it than we are, because at the moment it's owned by some kind of investment company who don't really know much about the community or the history. And they say, look, why don't we sell you the brand? So that's kind of where he's at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because he's kind of just proposed this and put it out there as an idea. And personally, in my view, I think it's a much more complex situation that he's put out. I think Commodore's cursed, personally. I think anyone that gets involved with Commodore is, going to get cursed and catch the curse, because it's had a rough history, and I think the Amiga ownership as well has probably had an even rougher history, which he doesn't really mention.
We should point out the Commodore and the Amiga have been separate entities since 1995.
Yes, yeah. And the interview we're going to do today, we'll talk about a bit of the history of the Amiga one as well. Even though they do say that this company, Commodore BV, is the legal owner, there is still an Italian company claiming to own Commodore. There's a vacuum cleaner.
Are they the ones that did that smartphone about 10 years ago?
No, that's another one. That's CBM. This is a different one. And they actually, I think they do Commodore-based degrees as well, which you can get. There's a Commodore vacuum cleaner company as well. There's a lot of people that have kind of rights from Commodore at the moment. I think Jens Schofield, a guy from Individual Computers as well, has one. And it seems like a bit of a complex mess. I think the main aim for this is putting the badge on things, so having that official thing. And would that matter to you that much, Dan? I know you have a Mega 65 and you have taken a Commodore badge and you stuck it on that machine. So yeah,
I always, with the Mega 65, we've talked about it before on the podcast. It was basically, it's something that's come along in recent years. It's an open source 8-bit computer, FPGA based, that is a continuation or remake, if you like, with a lot more added to it, of a machine that Commodore were working on back in 1990 called the Commodore 65. So the molds of it are the same case. It's got a beautiful mechanical keyboard. So for all intents and purposes, it looks exactly like the Commodore 65 that I remember reading about when I first got on the internet and thought it would be so cool to own one of those. So I did manage to get some fans have made like Commodore 65 badges.
Well, they actually mention in the video as well, Commodore, the 65 people, they talk about this, wanting this to happen. And Jerry Ellsworth as well, who interestingly did the C64 DTV, which was one of the first kind of Commodore branded things, which was like a direct to TV joystick that sold on QVC as well. That was with the old Commodore one. So she has a bit of a history of being in the rights there as well. I think it's interesting. Like, Joe, what would you think if the fans kind of own Sega? Do you think that would work, or like an older brand? Or I'm not quite sure myself, but it might.
I don't think you can. All I will say on the matter is I don't think you can make everybody happy in the scene.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's a fantastic idea and, you know, it's fantastic for the community, there would still be somebody who would moan and say it's a terrible idea. And then if you did the idea that they said, they'd probably then still moan and say it's a terrible idea. It is hard for me to say because I feel like Sega have got a lot cooking at the moment. You know, if I was to think of it from like a Sega point of view, and then like from Atari is the only other one I can kind of compare it to, and they're doing really well at the moment.
Yeah, but then also like Atari also put out a load of rubbish, didn't they, for a long time?
Yeah,
like the cryptocurrency.
I mean, it's hard for me to compare it to like companies that I'm, you know, into because of like I don't.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing. It's like a new idea that no one's kind of done before.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's biting off more than you can chew, you know, especially with the legal stuff going on. But you know, I think it's an idea that he's put out there, and it's definitely generated a lot of conversation that people are having at the moment. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, partially, I think, give it a go, because no one's really done anything worthwhile with the brand.
I thought those Commodore gaming PC cases were all right, but that was
I got one of those
years ago. Yeah,
I did get. They were like in the late 2000s. A company brought licensed a brand to bring some gaming PC cases out. I've got one of those. They're very nice.
You know, I was like thinking about it, and I was thinking, there's one communal ownership kind of thing, which is football clubs. So sometimes football clubs get bought out by their fans, and I was maybe thinking that could kind of be compared to what it is, because I've never heard of a trademark doing this or a brand doing this in another way.
Yeah, that is a goal that he's saying. So he said, a fair fan-driven reboot, avoiding corporate exploitation or half-hearted revivals, of which there have been many over the last 20, 30 years. So if you watch a video, it's half an hour long. I'll put it in the show notes. He's working with Sean Donoghue, who runs a company called My Retro Computer. So you may have seen those. He actually produces these really nice cases for mini ITX motherboards. It's basically a Commodore 64 looking case with a nice mechanical keyboard that you can put modern PC components in there. And also a guy called Leo Nigro, who works on something called Commodore OS Vision, which is a Linux distribution. I
think that was originally from Commodore USA, which is kind of the people that were originally.
That was another company,
another Commodore to add to the
about
list.
10 years ago. So, like you said, the history of it. God, we could do a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah, and that's my worry. You know, but Amiga, there's been some battles that have gone on for 14, 15 years. You know, legal stuff, and whoever's investing, you're going to have a bigger load of capital there to try and defend that trademark and stuff. And is it worth it? That's my question. But I also think it's very early days. He's only just put the idea out there. He's not got any investment, and he's kind of teased it as well. He's not. He said there's a part 2 coming, and there's more news. So, you know, interesting.
One of the biggest criticisms I've seen of this on Facebook is people saying, so basically he wants us to crowdfund it and he's going to own it, which I've watched the video really carefully, and he doesn't actually mention crowdfunding in it.
No,
he actually says specifically it's illegal in many countries you basically can't crowdfund shares. So it's illegal in Canada. In the UK, I think you've got to be earning like 200,000 a year income. Kickstarter won't let you do that, so there's no way you can do a crowdfunder for shareholders. But he does mention in the video he invites angel investors to get in touch with them. And he said there might be ways to support the initiative, though interestingly, he says they're probably not in the way that you think.
Which, listening to today's Petro interview, he talks about trying to find investors for Amiga and Commodore, you know, back then, years ago. So, it's kind of really interesting that we're doing this interview with this news story out there at the moment. It's like things never change. Commodore is still up in the air.
Who'd have thought that 30 years later? And he's already, there's a part of it he's doing called Commodore Care as well, which I think is quite interesting. Basically a charity side of it, where they want to give computers away to schools, hospitals and foster homes as well. And he's already partnered with a charity he's reached out called Cordwell Children.
Charity's always good.
So I mean, that's a nice side of it. So I mean, he's kind of branding this as kind of a now or never. And as I said, I've seen the brand kind of just not get used really for much over 30 years. So if Christian can pull this off, and if we can see projects like the Mega 65 officially be called the Commodore 65, and even stuff like the Retro Games Limited machines. I know their Amiga 1200 full size is currently in limbo because of all the copyright.
Then another thing he mentions in there is the Commodore A1200, and A1200 is trademarked by Amiga Kit as well. So who are producing the rival product. So already legal stuff in my head just because I covered this stuff for a magazine, and I'm kind of like.
So I mean, end result, if he can pull this off, and we can see the brand being in good hands and producing something worthwhile again that community efforts could actually have without any legal drama, I endorse that. I think that would be awesome.
I'm still holding my chips.
Yeah. So let's see how he gets on anyway. So I said it's only early days, so there will be another video on the way soon, I'm sure. So if you want to check that out, I'll link that in this week's show notes too. Now, I'm very excited about this. I did mention I was playing Mortal Kombat on my holiday in the hotel room last week while my missus was getting ready for a night out. But yeah, I was hooking up to the telly. Do you always do that? I mean, probably just me being a nerd. If you take a Switch or something away to a hotel room or kind of peek around the back, can I access the HDMI ports on this TV?
You didn't used to be able to for a long time. I remember having to go down to the reception and getting a code to actually unlock the HDMI port so that I could like play my Raspberry Pi. Yeah, they'd locked it in. Yeah.
Well, this hotel I was in, I mean, the TV was probably about, I'd say, 15 years old. I looked at it, had component and composite on the back. I was like, oh, there's no HDMI port. Then I went to the source selector and there was one on there. I was like, where the hell is that then?
Can I take my TV home with me?
Yeah, so I was trying to, yanking it off the wall, just my missus comes out, you got to break that off the wall, we're going to get fined. Managed to get my Switch in there. Played a bit of Mortal Kombat last week, but this is something that is coming to the Switch, and this is from the wonderful team at Digital Eclipse. You do these incredible collections of basically living documentaries, where it's a pack of the history of games, documentaries, all tied in with the actual games that you can play, and they release these as packs. I think the first big one was the Atari 50 collection that they did. They've done a Street Fighter one as well. They've done quite a few of these now, haven't they, over the last couple of years? Prince of Persia one we talked about as well. This one, though, is coming later this year to all modern platforms. Original Switch, Switch 2, PS4, 5, Xbox One, PC, Steam. This is Mortal Kombat, the Legacy Collection.
This looks cool. I think for me, I'm more excited about the games that they haven't announced. So they're saying this is going to be the most complete with a K collection, also with a K, of Mortal Kombat games in one place. It's going to be, they've never done anything as cohesive as this, all in one place kind of thing. And having a look at what they've announced so far, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So they've got Mortal Kombat, the original, but you get with it the arcade, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear version. And then Mortal Kombat 2, you get the arcade, SNES, Genesis Mega Drive version, Game Boy, and the 32X version.
I didn't know there was a 32X.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that as well. Is it much different?
There's a lot of videos out there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what the differences are. Right. I was sad to see that there's no Sega Saturn versions here, or in fact any PlayStation versions or anything like that, because the Mortal Kombat 3, you get the arcade, SNES, and Genesis version. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, you just get the arcade and SNES version. Then Mortal Kombat 4, you only get the arcade version, which is fine, but it did come out, on the N64 and PlayStation and stuff. And then, interestingly, you get Mortal Kombat Advance, which was the Game Boy Advance version. Then Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, but the Game Boy Advance version. And then not like the Xbox or GameCube version or anything like that. And then Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, which was also a Game Boy Advance game. So other than the 32X version of Mortal Kombat 2, it's essentially all the arcade versions of the games, and then the 16-bit versions of the games, and then the Game Boy Advance games, which were 32-bit, which I think is quite interesting. There doesn't seem to be any sort of PlayStation or N64 or, the 6th gen games on there. And they're saying it's the most complete, I mean, they're not saying what era of Mortal Kombat, but
it says the early years, but then, like you said, they get GBA versions 2003, so it's first decade.
Yeah,
really,
so but they've said there's more to announce, and in the trailer, there's lots of question marks flying around at one point. And what I'd really love to see, I'm looking in the comments and stuff, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, I hope they do Shaolin Monks or Armageddon in there." I want to see the crap games. I want to see what's that Sub-Zero one called? The proper, bottom of the barrel ones that nobody liked or played. I'd love to see that.
Mortal Kombat Mythologies, that's the one you're thinking about.
That's it.
It was on the tip of my tongue then as well.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat Mythologies. They did the Sub-Zero one, and then they did another one after that with Jax, which was actually...
AVGN did a video on it. I've never played them before.
Yeah,
but I remember
the other one
they
did was a top-down shooter where you could play as Jax, and I want to say maybe Sonya and it was a run and gun game, which, you know, was completely far removed from Mortal Kombat, but it was a Mortal Kombat game and set in the Mortal Kombat universe.
But it's part of the history, isn't it? You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't just put the good stuff on here. Yeah, I agree.
So I'm excited to see it, and it's cool that, you know, like you said, the Atari 51 had like these massive documentaries on there, you know, so they're doing that for this as well. It's going to have all the, like, the history and the documentaries on there, and they're interviewing, you know, Ed Boon and stuff like that on it, which, you know, is really, really cool to see. But yeah, give me the crap. Give me the terrible games as well.
I agree. I think, it would be nice if we get the entire collection. So, I mean, all those Game Boy games, it's interesting they've got those on there because, I mean, I'd never think of playing Mortal Kombat on a Game Boy.
Yeah.
You know, I actually forgot it kind of came out on the Game Boy, if I'm honest with them. Oh, yeah. The arcade ones are getting, you know, SNES and Genesis. Yeah, it would be nice to see N64. Even the Dreamcast version on there, you know, Mortal Kombat Gold. I quite enjoyed that in the Dreamcast. So yeah, that would be nice, and having the original arcades and stuff as well. The thing about it is, I know Digital Eclipse will do a good job on this. I mean, they've basically got that kind of engine now, so where everything's presented nicely, and archive footage in there, stories behind it, interviews with the key people, some new documentary footage on there as well. So very hyped for it. But like you said, Joe, I hope they do have a bit more of an overview and show kind of the moments of the franchise that maybe people would rather forget in there, alongside all the gold too. So all I can round that story off is by saying this. Toasty! We look forward to it. So I'm going to read that. And all the rest of the stories, I'll put them in this week's show notes on your podcast app, or you can head to the website at theretrohour.com. All right, then, well, thank you for checking out the news this week. More for you on next Friday's show. Next, then, getting some really interesting stories that we haven't heard before from the former Amiga Technologies Managing Director, Petro Tyschtschenko. He's coming up next on the Retro Hour podcast. You're listening to the Retro Hour podcast, and it is time to welcome on this week's very special guest. And today it's going to be really interesting to find out some stories from kind of the not only the Commodore years as well, but also what happened to the Amiga post-Commodore as well, because that's a really interesting history. So our guest today was actually Director of International Logistics and Materials Management, later Managing Director of Amiga Technologies under ESCOM, and the President of Amiga Technologies as well. So let's welcome on our guest this week, Petro Tyschtschenko. Welcome, Petro.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome also to our fans, to the Amiga, to the Commodore, to everybody who would like to be the retro computer, to see Retro Petro.
I like it, Retro Petro. I mean, let's kind of find out a bit about your history. I mean, let's go back to the start. Do you remember the first time you saw a computer?
I saw a computer. I don't know what was a computer. At this moment, I was working for an American company called Addressograph Multigraph. They have had printing machines and they have copy machines and fax machines. This was the first time, because fax machine is like a starting of the computer. But the first computer I saw, when I saw the advertisement of the Commodore, because Commodore was make a personal computer. They called it personal computer this time. Nobody knows what is a personal computer. That was a strange word, to be honest. And anyway, and then I saw in the shops in Frankfurt, you know, I'm living close to Frankfurt. There were shops there selling the PET.
Yeah.
The PET. This was the first computer. And I was so excited because I said, my goodness, I'm working for this printing company. And, I don't know. And I would like to change it anyway. I worked there already 9 years. I would like to change. And I thought the computer company is the best for the future, because I would like to build up the future. This time I was a young guy, or let's say, I need to take care about my career. I saw an advertisement in the newspaper from, headhunter. And I thought, okay, then I will send him a CV. I sent him a CV, the headhunter. There was not announced Commodore. There was only announced famous computer company for the future, blah, 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 looking for a guy who can talk a little bit English and check and make the logistic for this company. And I was working in a logistic by Addressograph Multigraph already. And then, and I have luck. So the headhunter called me. We have an interview in a hotel. And I was really sure that that this is the right company for me, and he would like to hire me. He would like to to send me a contract. But, yeah, nothing happens. He said, no, sorry, sir, we don't need, we are not agree. You're not the right client. So I'm sorry. I wish you for the future all the best. Punch. Right. So I have my job at Adressograph Multigraph, and then come a guy from Siemens. Because at this time I changed the telephone system. I make it a little bit modern, and you know, the technology is going on, and there was a sales guy, and we talked, and then we come a little bit close. We built up a relationship, and then I said, I'm not so happy in this company now. I said, I have already applied for another company. I think this was Commodore. But Commodore refused to take me. What? He said, Commodore. The president of Commodore was working at Siemens. So the German president at this time.
Right, yeah.
Speyer. He was working for Siemens as a trainee. And this guy was his boss. And
Wow.
he said, look, if you would like to start at Commodore, I will call Speyer. This was the name, Harald Speyer. I said, okay, then call me. Then call him. And maybe he needs you because you're a good guy and we have a relationship. I know that you have skills and interest and you're a hardworking guy and make a good job and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, fine. Then 2 weeks happened. I was sitting in a terrace. I can remember it now like this was around 50 years already. No? Yeah, nearly 45, 50 years ago. I was sitting in a terrace and just would like to open a beer and drink. And then the telephone rings. And on the telephone was a secretary for Mr. Speyer. Oh, I said, and then it was in the afternoon, you know. I said, you have time? I said, yeah, what happens? Yeah, Mr. Speyer would like to see you. Chop. I dressed boom, in the car and chop to Frankfurt. And then we have the interview. There was 5 people. They interviewed me, blah, 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 blah. And then I start 1st of September, 1982 at Commodore. Yeah, that's my story. So
I was wondering what you were first like helping sell there. Was it the VIC-20?
yeah, this time was a VIC-20. There was we have not called it VIC-20. We called it VC, Volkscomputer. You know, VC, because Fick is like fuck. Nobody would like, because, you know, in Germany, they said, no, we take VC. VC means Volkscomputer. And we was very successful. And if you ask me, I'm a sales guy. I was not a sales guy. I was in the logistic, which was the most important thing, because we have not sold the computer. We allocated the computer to the customer. They sent us order 10,000 unit for whole Europe. I was distributing the C64, the VIC-20, the VC-20, so VC-20 in whole Europe. We have had 11 countries, Netherlands and Spain, Italy, and of course UK as well. UK was very strong at this time. They have very big stores where they sold the VC-20. They was very successful. And Germany also. And we allocated this. I allocated this. So I have had a very important job for this time. The dealer always said, oh, Petro, I need 10,000. I said, no, 10,000, not 2,000 for him, 5,000 for them, 3,000 for them. And then I met Mr. Schmidt also, the boss of Eskom, because at this time, he was a dealer of Commodore, right?
This is Manfred Schmidt we're talking about, who was
Manfred Schmidt,
later your boss.
Which I worked in later on. But at this time, I think I make him a good at Christmas time. Was very short. The VIC-20, the VIC-20 was very, very short. And I allocated him and saved him that he's not going into bankruptcy. He told me this later on and said he will never forget it. That I saved him and I give him some computers.
Did you also do a deal with C64 with Manfred as well?
The C64 is coming, and nobody of the dealer would like to have a C64. Everybody would like to have the VC-20. And then Jack Tramiel come. I never will forget. Jack Tramiel come to Frankfurt, and we have a meeting with him, and he jumped like a dog, like a tiger, I have to say, on the desk and said, "Look, gentlemen, sales is like a war, and you're a soldier, and you have to win." And I saw the inventory. Petro sent me the inventory. And what I saw, 36,000 C64 are on the store. C64. And you're only selling VC20? You're crazy? Jump. And he shouted with all the salespeople. I was logistic, as I told you. But he shouted with the salespeople. Okay. And then we started to sell the C64. But it starts very, very close because everybody of the dealer would like to have the VC20. So that's the start of the C64. But then it was C64 running like a hell, no?
Yeah, became the biggest selling computer of all time, the C64.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And software and all these things, what we have done, a lot of things. I was purchasing also. I was responsible for the purchasing department. I was responsible for the administration, maintenance, contracts, insurance, and all the things, and also parking, parking place. Who get what parking place was really different problem. Politics, you know, who will get number one, who get number two with the car, and all the car things are also under my control. And then logistic, of course, and a warehouse, right? And I was then 4 years responsible for the German company. We have had a warehouse. I was responsible for 52 people in Braunschweig. That was my warehouse. I was traveling then from Frankfurt. It's around about 250 kilometer, 2 times a week or 1 time a week, and visit my people in Braunschweig in the warehouse. I have done this 4 years. And then I was responsible for whole Europe. Then I built up, that was also one of my idea, a centralized warehouse in close to Rotterdam, because all the containers comes from Hong Kong and from Philippines and from Taiwan to Rotterdam. And I work with a forwarder together with Kühn & Nagel and make the allocation from Frankfurt. And then after this, I have done this also 4 years for Europe only. And then Mehdi Ali, he upgraded me for logistic director international. Then I was traveling many times to Hong Kong. I was responsible also for a production plan and for the finance plan, discussing with Hong Kong, discussing with Japan. We have a big purchasing department in Japan as well. And so, and then.
Do you remember when you first saw the Amiga and what your reaction was to it?
Yeah, you know, this was called multimedia. Nobody in Germany or nobody in our company knows what this multimedia. Multimedia was a strange word, you're right. So, and then we have this, after there was a big event in New York. They introduced the the A1000. And then also in Frankfurt, we have had a big event also in the Old Opera. And we introduced to the public also the A1000. Yeah, this was very successful machine, of course. You know, we have this C64, the Amiga A1200, A500, A600, and all these Amiga things for the retail, for the consumer business. And the A1000, A2000, A4000, and 3000 coming then for the business people.
I was wondering what was unique to the German market. So in the UK, we were very focused on gaming. In America, they had the video production. Was it German hardware? Was it about the computing in Germany?
We was very successful for the small things as well as also for the business. We have had 2 sales departments, one for the public, and the other one for the business. So, right. It was running very well because in America.
Yeah.
there was no business at this time. They have, I think, 120 or 150 sales guys, and we always listen, what happened? Nothing happened there, we're successful in Europe anyway. We're successful. We have advertisement because a lot of magazines, Amiga magazines was special, and the people was very interested. There was many, what cost nothing for us. But they make advertisement, in gaming and also in high end, in 3000, and so on.
And right? You were also selling the business machines as well?
Yes.
The Commodore PCs.
Yeah, the Commodore PCs. This was developed, it was so, at this time, the Commodore PC, we have had in Westchester, we have had also 2 development departments. One was for the Amiga, and one was for the PC. And at this time, the PC made from Commodore was excellent. If you saw the boards and the technology was absolute top. And at this time comes in Taiwan, the cheap PCs, This was terrible, but cheap. And we could not compete. And they overrolled, of course. And that was also one of the reasons why Commodore went in trouble, because we have had so many inventory on PCs, right? And from Taiwan, the competition killed our business. And then we have to write off inventory, write off for our hard disk drives, because, at this time there was 20 gigabyte, 50 gigabyte, 40 gigabyte, 80 gigabyte, 60, incredible, every 3 months comes more capacity. And of course, the old inventory was still and blocked our finance situation. That was one reason. And then, of course, another reason why Commodore went into financial problems was the UK, not Commodore UK, but when we was developing C64 and Faust VIC-20, most of all the software companies was located in UK.
Yeah,
it was all software coming from UK. And of course, when we were so successful with the gaming machines with C64 and so on, then we pushed them to get lowest price, but they need Commodore and they make not so much money. But then for example, the CD32, the 8-bit was into 16-bit. It was one of the best machines. The CD32 was very good. But the software companies in UK said, that was a problem. They're not supported us in software. They supported at this time Nintendo very start, I think, and then another game machine also from Japan, and
Sega, yeah.
Problem. Yeah, exactly. And so no software. That was the same problem with the UK software companies on a CDTV.
Yes.
CDTV was the same. There was a Super Machine, the first CD machine where you can play movie and so on, like also with MPEG, the CD32 also same, right? Yep. But software companies has not delivered. Philips also struggled at this time because they have constructed the CDI. When I remember, we was also in Amsterdam and talking with Philips how we can manage this software and so on. This was big problems, right? And then Mehdi Ali thought we get more and more in finance problems, and then Mehdi Ali said, "Okay, we will contact Stan Shi, maybe in Taiwan. Maybe he would like take over the CD32." Because Samsung, we contact Samsung, not Stan Shi, but Samsung, because Samsung has until now no game machine. And at this time, we contacted Samsung and said, "You would like to have a game machine? We have a 32, a bit make based on Amiga and so on," but they refused. They have not to pay too much, and then the company went into bankruptcy in 1994. Yeah, I don't know if you know, but I was the last animal, and the judge sued me for 198 million US dollar. You know this. 198 million. Personally. There was Mehdi Ali sued and other general managers because the liquidators, you know, we have 14 European companies in Europe, 14. And everybody was a general manager and was entity. And they went bankruptcy, and then there was always a liquidator, Paris, France, and so on. And they would like to find the who is responsible, and then they take care about the all general managers and me as well. And they said, it's our fault that the company went bankruptcy and so many people lost money, shareholders and all the things. What is right? And so they sued us, and we have 14 years. I was fighting 14 years when other people relaxed on the beach side, in restaurants or whatever they've done, or music, right? I was still fighting 14 years, I can tell you. Yeah. And we win then. They sued us on, my thing was 198 million US dollar. Oh, wow. I was also sued from the court in Paris. I was sued in the court from Hong Kong. I was sued in the court from Spain, because Mehdi Ali, he trusts me a lot of. He said, Petro, you are so honest guy. And all the general managers left. You know, if the problem is the ship, all the people the Reds get out of the ship.
Yeah, sinking ship. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he announced me for as a managing director in Paris, in Hong Kong, and then I have to fight, of course, with all the liquidators now. So, but anyway, after 14 years, the court case was closed, and we have had insurance. This was Mehdi Ali have done insurance for all these general managers, about 50 million. And we spent around about 20 million on court cases, on lawyers, and so on. But of course, it was stress for me as well, no?
With the buyout, it was it Escom and New Star Electronics as well, I think. And they did the buyout, and they had lots of, obviously, a previous relationship with Manfred Schmidt as well. Do you think that helped with the buyout as well, having this?
They have no money. They're only talking. There was only talking. There was nothing against my friend David Pleasance. And there was also another guy from the finance, very nice guy. But they're only talking. They have no money. And there was a liquidator. I have a good relationship with this liquidator. And then there was many people they would like to buy Amiga and Commodore. But they only talking, and no money. If it comes to the point, no money. But then started Gateway, and then started Escom. And Escom put on a table in New York. I was there. I was flying together with Manfred Schmidt to the court to New York, at this time with the Concorde. Never forget, very excited. And we had the court case. And Manfred Schmidt said, okay, 10 million. He put it on the table. There was also Dell, Dell was also very excited to buy it. And the judge, I remember, was in the courthouse there. The judge said, okay, you would like also to buy a Commodore and Amiga? They said, yes. So what you would like to pay? Then Dell said, yeah, I would like to pay 19 million. Oh. And then the judge said, you would like to pay today? No, they said, we have to make a due diligence. We have to do this. We have to do that. And, I was already 3 months in New York and in Westchester, and I have the due diligence done for Escom. Talked with all the engineers, talked what happened there and so on. And then the judge said, okay, no, 10 million, the deal is done.
So when Escom purchased Amiga, there was a lot of technology still there. I remember the Amiga 4000T, they started recreate, and there was also a deal with QuickPack as well.
Look, at this time, when we got the deal, as I told you before, Manfred Schmidt took over the Commodore for the PC part, put it in their shops, and also sold it to Neckermann. They have a good relationship to a mail order housing, to thing. And I was responsible for Amiga, only for the Amiga. And then I'm thinking, because we have factories in Taiwan, we have factories in Hong Kong, we have factories in the Philippines, what I should do, right? And then I thought, okay, I will focus only because we have no manufacturing anymore, bankruptcy, no people, no nothing, only inventory, boards and other supplies for manufacturing, but not finished goods. At this time, there was no finished goods. And then I thought, okay, I will ramp up the A1200 and I will ramp up the A4000. The A4000 was in Germany not running so good. The A4000 was running in the United States very, very good. Then I go to QuickPack and said, hey, QuickPack, I have an A4000. Are you interested to manufacturing this? And QuickPack said, yes, we will manufacture it. I make a deal with QuickPack. And in Germany, I went to Solectron, which was a factory in France, and give them the order for the A1200. Before I was flying with another guy, with a lawyer to the Philippines, because there was 3 banks which locked the inventory, because Commodore Philippines owns them money. And then we negotiated with them. We said, okay, we will take over the inventory with the 3 banks. And they said, yeah, they would like to have 1.5 million. We said, oh, no. Then we negotiated down to 500,000. And then they said, okay, fine. We made the agreement with the 3 banks, the lawyer, together with me in the Philippines. And I remember they come to three banks on Sunday. It was on Sunday with 3 keys, because the warehouse where all this inventory was locked was only to open with the 3 keys from the bank. They opened the warehouse, and then we looked, A4000 boards, masses, boards. And then we looked, we have A1200 parts. Okay. And then I negotiated with Solectron. No, I have to tell you so. There was some people who were working before at Commodore plant in the Philippines. I hired them, right? Under ESCOM. I hired them. And then they make an inventory. How many screws, how many boards, how many this, they make a bill of material for the A1200 and for the A4000. And this bill of material, where they said how many units of this bill material is available, I gave to Solectron and I gave to QuickPack. And then QuickPack ordered what they need in addition, right? And Solectron also ordered what they need for the production. And then Solectron started the A1200 game pack production.
So let me just explain to some listeners that might not know about the history of Amiga and ESCOM. After the Amiga range totally finished, there were still all of these factories and inventory. And this is what Petro is talking about, how he reactivated the factories, got the machines out and did a deal with an American kind of video company, QuickPack, to produce these video systems.
Yes. Right.
And one thing I find interesting is obviously, ESCOM have bought the Amiga now. ESCOM, a huge German PC company at the time, used the Commodore branding on their PC range, I remember.
Yes, right.
As you mentioned, Amiga became a separate company under ESCOM that you were running.
Right direction, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm interested, 'cause I know at the end of Commodore, we've had like Dave Haney on the podcast before, and he mentioned that, Commodore were working on some next generation hardware like the AAA chipset. And
this was ESCOM was a sales company. There was not a manufacturing company. They was not interested. Of course, we have some I built up the company, and there was also some people because I'm not from the technical side. I was from the sales side. I took over the sales, and I know all my dealers. I make dealer conferences and so, because we have at Eskom, I have every month nearly 1 million euro revenue every month with Amiga, only with Amiga, right? And I could survive. But Eskom went into bankruptcy with the PC side, with Pentium and all the things. You know, they have also, they have only assembling plant. Eskom have an assembling plant. They assembled around about 20,000 PCs every month. 20,000. And there was a big, competition, which was Vobis. And Vobis and Eskom, they fight it, right? And then Vobis survived and Eskom went bankruptcy. And Amiga was still surviving.
Was there no plans to do the AAA or the Ombre chipsets then? Was it?
They were not interested.
Okay.
Because, you know, this was sales and engineer. They take only the sales parts and make it easy, the business, to simplify the things. We were not such a big company where we can pay the engineers and developing new AAA, triple, and all the things, good ideas. But this was not the principle of Eskom. Eskom was sales, and I was starting assembling. This was also new, and Eskom was also assembling. Eskom was assembling the PCs, and I was assembling in Solitron the A1200 game pack. So, and there was and then we said, okay, fine, let's get old and older and older and older. The technology, we need to think about how we can survive. And you know, in Amiga is everything tailor-made. There are no parts which are compatible with the PC parts. And so, and then my idea was, together with some people also, there was Mr. Domeyer he was also thinking about this, and he have also contact. There come Dave Haney came, and there come this was some discussion, and then we said, okay, we need to make a new product, not tailor-made on Amiga parts, but not tailor-made, but standard make on PC parts. And then I found Dr. Grunert. Dr. Grunert was from the East German part, right? When the unification was, he has a company there, and I discussed with him, and he said, okay, he will develop the Walker.
Yes.
On the PC parts.
Which was a prototype machine, wasn't
exactly.
it? Yeah.
And because we could manufacture cheap with the PC parts, with the CD-ROM drive and all the things. So, and then Grunert done it. I was involved in these things. And there was also some people of my company, of Amiga, also involved. There was some support. Dr. Kittel was there, and there was Jülicher, and I don't actually remember. There was a lot of people, they understand technical. And then we discussed, and then we make a housing. They come some people, they also supported us and make the housing. We said at the Hoover, and then there was a Walker. And we have, I think three samples was done. And then the company, Eskom, went bankruptcy, right?
It's interesting because I remember seeing the Walker in magazines, and if people haven't seen it, I'd recommend people just search it on Google and have a look. Yeah, I mean, it was quite a striking design. Like you said, I mean, people did kind of make fun of it, the vacuum cleaner, the helmet.
The Amiga guy, he designed this. And then, of course, we took it. I was not so happy that we called it Walker. I would like to make it faster with the Sprinter. I would like, but anyway, Walker. Okay, good. But then Eskom went into bankruptcy, and then nothing was anymore, right? Then I was looking. Everybody left the company. This is normal. Only the stupid guy like me keep the company warm, you know, and looking at the investor. Eskom, what should I do? And then I said, okay, I called Apple, I called Motorola, I called a lot of companies and said, you would like to buy, you know, because, you know, the luck was following. The liquidator of Eskom was the same liquidator as the liquidator from Commodore.
Oh, wow. A year earlier.
I was general manager or president of Amiga. And there was a meeting I never forget. There was all the general managers from ESCOM, because ESCOM has also a lot of general managers. And me as Amiga general manager was there. And then Mr. Hembach, that was a liquidator. He said, Mr. Tyschtschenko, you again here? I met you right at Commodore. Now you're at ESCOM again. Don't get the third time here. He said,
I'm interested to know, why do you think, because I remember when ESCOM took over Commodore and the Amiga, there's a lot of optimism, a lot of hope. And then, as you mentioned, 12 months later, ESCOM went into liquidation. Why do you think that happened then, from your perspective? What kind of happened? What went wrong?
ESCOM was a PC assembler, and he bought chips from Intel inside. And at this time, I remember they come because in between I was the director of the assembling plant, right? Because I was making due diligence. I was 3 months in New York, and then when the due diligence was finished, I have to do something because ESCOM paid me, and there was nothing pending. Amiga was pending, right? This was my project. And then I was responsible for the assembling plant for PCs. Therefore, I know we assembled 20,000 PCs a month. And then Intel come and said, okay, there was a Pentium. I remember, I think the Pentium 50 was at this time. Pentium 50. And there was a Pentium 50 and a Pentium 75, I think, or 65. And then we decided, so Mr. Schmidt decided to make, because Intel offered us very, very cheap the Pentium 50 because it was outrunning. And then Vobis bought 75. And Vobis was a competition. And we make the PC with a Pentium 50 cheap in our advertisement, right? To compete with Vobis. Vobis have the latest PC 75 inside. And the people, they bought not the cheaper one. They even bought, they would like to spend more money, but get the latest technology. And so ESCOM could not sell the cheap PCs with a Pentium 50. And the deal was done by Vobis. And then ESCOM went into bankruptcy. I think 300 million. They went into bankruptcy. Finished. And I could survive. Then come Hembach, as I told you. And he said, what are you doing with your Scientology computer? He always said to me, Scientology computer. I remember I said, Mr. Hembach, please, I have a dealer group which is working very good. I have inventory left from, I have heard about 100,000 game machines, this game pack from Solitron, which was in my warehouse, right? After the inventory, after the bankruptcy. I said, Mr. Ember, I have inventory I can sell, and I guarantee you, my dealer, I have every month 1 million on your bank account. Then you said, I don't believe this with your Scientology computer, but anyway, show me. And I was then selling I said to Ember, I said, okay, but you have to give me some money because for logistic, for truck companies and so on, otherwise bankruptcy, you have no money, nah? He said, okay, fine. Then end of the month come and show me what you spent. I will sign the invoices. We will see if you make 1 million. And end of the month, I come with a big map with invoices and I have 1 million on his account. It was an ESCOM account, so I have no access to this account. And then he signed. He said, very difficult. This is why you have to pay this. It's very difficult. But then he saw 1 million. And the next time when I came with the full invoice, he said, go. Then no checking, no nothing anyway. And I was running then, right?
Yeah.
I was running, and then we find Gateway. I found one.
I was wondering about Gateway. Why do you think they were interested in the Amiga? And they
was interested because there was a lot of license. Amiga and Commodore have a lot of license. For example, they have some license existing about the mouse also, and was with Microsoft in conflict also, who were this, and this, they was interested in the license, to take over the license. And I remember there come two consulting first to me, because I was desperate. As I told you, after the bankruptcy of Escom, I was approaching Apple. I said, hey, you would like to buy? I was approaching Motorola and offered, and other companies also, because I would like to keep this alive, right? And in between, I always selling, I selling, but even with a liquidator. So, and then come two people consulting and said, hey, yeah, we're interested, and so on and so on. And I explained everything. I make a show, what Amiga is doing. And then they talked with Ted Wade. Ted Wade was at this time the president of Gateway. And then there come lawyer and all the things, people coming from Gateway to me. And they said, okay, they offered 14 million. Then I called the liquidators, Mr. Hembach, and said, hey, they're buying for 40. Yeah, sell it. Okay. Then we make it. And I said, yeah, but then if you buy Amiga, then you have to buy myself as well, because I would like to continue my work, right? So, and then Gateway gave me a contract also. Gateway paid 14 million, and I continue with my Amiga, And then one time Gateway called me and said, hey, I was very successful, was very good. Then Gateway called me and said, hey, we cannot continue with Amiga, because Gateway have good ideas. There was also good engineers also. They said we make a new operating system upgrade.
Yes,
the MCC came, Neuhausing. I was also flying many times to US. I go then to this was I think we was to where the Apple designed this iMac at this time. The new machine, the Apple came out with with
the colorful ones.
Yeah. Such a thing. I was at this designing company with Gateway people, and they designed then the MCC.
Yes. So let me explain what the MCC was. So when Gateway kind of came in, they wanted to do a future path for the Amiga, and they created, it was called a multi-convergence computer. And it was a prototype, and a lot of people were excited about it. It was very based around an operating environment and kind of using different devices with the Amiga brand and kind of modernizing it. And also at the time, there was a push for PowerPC in the Amiga. So it was all about trying to upgrade the Amiga.
Right.
How did you find that time? Was there a lot of excitement around the machine?
Gateway also was talking. I was sitting there selling my A1200 game pack and to survive, and selling, of course, via quick pack the A4000, and visit, and then I thought to continue, because the most value in Amiga was the community. Yes. The community was still alive. So my idea was to keep the community happy. Because the community always asked me, Petro, what's happened there? Nothing happened. Gateway, what doing? No thing, no software, blah, blah, over the whole thing. And then I started with pencils, with undershorts, with socks, with all the things, advertisement, T-shirts, all the things. And
you even had the dance band Annex as well, who were like the Amiga dance.
My idea. I was one time in Poland, and then I think I sang the song, Amiga for you, Amiga for you, and it's when I hold a speech, and then I thought maybe it's not bad to have a song, and then one Amiga freak also called me and said, I designed this music, you're interested? And then I developed this also to keep the Amiga happy, the Amiga community. That was very, very important. And I'm always waiting for Gateway. They bring a new product, they bring a new housing, they bring this. Then we can divide, because the Amiga community is still alive. I kept it alive on fairs. I always showed the game back.
I remember some of the shows. I actually went to them as a little kid and met you. But also I remember the operating system updates, which were really important for the Amiga community.
We have had 3.2, I remember, and then I developed with Hage and Partner under the umbrella of Gateway, the 3.5. And then later on, they make the 3.9, but then I was already out of course.
Yeah, and I remember you had a message at the front of it to the Amiga community.
Yes,
and,
yes. I was traveling around and I was speaking. I hold the community alive. And I think the community, of course, some people, they don't like me, especially the UK people, they don't like me because we was at this time always competitors, but it's stupid to be honest. Yeah.
I think, everybody's together now because there's some fantastic events and, we all love the same machine, Petro.
I have nothing against David Pleasance, but I have to speak up this. David Pleasance wrote a book and blamed me in this book. I don't understand this. After 30 years, after 40 years, he wrote stupid comments about me. I don't understand. I also wrote a book, but I never finger pointed to anybody. You can read it. This is my style. And I don't understand this. Why? I know what I have done. I know this, right? And I'm proud of this, of course. I'm also proud of this. And many people know, especially in Germany, they know what I have done. So I have a lot of people who likes me. But anyway, if you are in the public, some people likes you, some people don't like you. This hurts this times.
So tell us what went wrong with Gateway then, because it sounds like there was a lot of optimism here. Why did it not happen?
I think this was, I don't know if this is true or not true, but I heard that Bill Gates, because Gateway was a very important dealer from Microsoft, and Bill Gates said, we heard that you would like to make some business with Amiga. We don't like Amiga. And if you don't stop this Amiga business, then we will increase your license fee and all the things. I don't know, but this was what I heard. And then Gateway said, we cannot make longer Amiga. And they asked me, I said, Petro, do you have an investor? I thought, my God, the third time I have to look after investor. I get crazy. Then they said, okay, I said, I'm the investor. There was quiet. How? I said, we have round about, at this time we have 10,000 game bags. I took over 100,000, but this time we have still 10,000 in the warehouse. And you saw, he said, this, we also thought about this because when the computer get old, then we have to get rid of them. We have to pay a lot of money to get rid of them because, how to say, don't know in English how to say this, but electroshock, garbage. Garbage, and then you have to pay for this and all things. Then, okay, we understand. So you will take care about this? I said, no problem. I take care about everything. So what you would like to pay? I said, $1. They said, oh, okay, good. If you take care about all, we have no problem. We have no get rid of the shit and so on. You take care about the inventory and so on. They don't know that Amiga get worse as older they are.
Yeah.
It's not like the PC. The PC got down as older they are. Okay, but anyway. And then the contract was nearly finished. And then they called me. This was at 2000. I remember I was with my wife in Dubai. We celebrated 1999 to 2000. And then they called me and said, we have another investor. There's a guy called Bill McEwen. He pays $3 million. Oh, then that was out. I said, okay, good luck. Good.
And that was Amiga Inc., was it?
It was Amiga Inc. And then they come, and then I was also in the United States, and Bill McEwen come here. He saw the inventory. And then he said, and then suddenly I sold my Amiga for 300 euro or whatever at this time. And then he deducted the pricing. He cut down the price. No reason for this. Because there's no reason. And he made complete my business. He damaged my business. He wrote an email to all dealers and said, okay, now the price will be not 320, the price will be 180 or something. I said, why are you doing this? No need for doing this. And then he said, I would like to get rid of them and so on and so on. And then I said, okay, fine. And then he said, I don't need you anymore. I said, okay, fine. And then you don't need me anymore. Then bye-bye. No? Meanwhile, I'm not stupid. I built up my own business also with China at this time, traveling and so on. Right. And then he invited me. We make a big party, and that was the end. And unfortunately, I respected Bill McEwen a lot but he has not brought everything. This was a dead-born child. Unfortunately, he has all the problems he could raise. Amiga, nothing. Yeah. I was so sorry. I said, I cannot believe. And then after 5 years or something, then I was out, I was angry, of course, a little bit, or not angry, but disappointed that I have put so much energy in to keep Amiga alive, and now this guy come and destroyed everything. And it was good if something come out, but there's nothing come out, no result, only talking. I was not talking too much. My motto my style was always do it, not talking, do it. But then, after 5 years, I think it was 2006 or 2007, then my dealer, Bill McEwen said I have to liquidate the inventory. So I sold, as I told you before, all the inventory to my dealer to India.
Yeah.
Was round about, I think 10,000 units were left, right? 10,000 units. And he paid $35. And after 5 years, he offered me, because he had around 1,000 he have still in stock. And then I bought this. It was not 1,000, it was 960. I never forget. I bought it for 110 euro. And sold it then for 150. So I have not made any profit, but everybody was happy and the machine was okay. And then the community, they started also to like me again. Okay. And then 2014 came a guy to my house and said, hey, Petro, I'm a club member of the Worms here, something. And I would like that you write a book. I said, you're crazy. I don't write a book. I have no time for this. Why should that is memories and so on. And you have a lot of experience on this, and the community will happy to know what happens, all the things with Gateway, with ESCOM. No, you're a time teller, or let's say,
historian. Historian.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then he talk, and said, that's okay. And then he came with a microphone. And then I talked to him in 2014, and then always he wrote, and then come back, and I correct this, and then takes two years to make the book. And I make the book, and still selling the book to museums. There are a lot of retro museums. Unfortunately, only in German. It's only in German. It's not in English. I'm interested. If somebody's interested, there'll come an Italian guy from the Rome Museum. He said, okay, he would like to get a license to translate this in Italy. But this is so difficult for me. And I still have now, the museums are buying this. We have Retro Museum in Kaiserslautern. Then we have a Retro Museum in Oldenburg. Then we have in Frankfurt. I was last Saturday with my son. I was also with my son and with my grandson. We visit this fair, and I sold her some books and some posters. I still have posters only, keep the momentum going on Back to the Future.
Nice.
And so, not to make money, but to have some fun also, right? To cover the cost or whatever, traveling costs, so, because I get no money for this. And I'm in pension, so I'm not a rich guy, Okay, I have a house and family is okay, and I have 2 kids. Everything is fine, is settled. But anyway, you get not too much pension. I'm 82,
Looking good for 82, though, Petro.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's been great to talk to you and hear some of your memories. And you are going to be at several events over the summer and the rest of this year as well. Like we said at the start, the big one, Amiga 40, the 40th anniversary of the Amiga, that's going to be happening in Germany.
I have to tell you one thing. Yeah. I make also in eBay, I make some, I have so many things. which my kids, they're not interested in this. They said, okay. So I put this in eBay, and people are interested and bought it.
Oh,
right?
nice.
And there was one guy, he spent around about 5,000-6,000 euro. And then he entered and said, Petro, I would like to be your coach. I said, okay, fine. And now he spent around about, I was many times with him. We go, for example, 10th of December, we organized in Braunschweig was a museum.
The old Commodore plant is now a museum. Yeah.
There was a plant, and then Streif took it and built up a museum. And Streif called me in November last year and said, Petro, are you interested to take over this museum? Oh, I said, because I need some space. I cannot, I expand my company. My son would have some different, he's also 75 old. and his son is 45. He would like to expand the company and need the space. And then I called my coach, and then he organized 2 trucks and 5 people, because he have an IT company. So I have 2 IT companies and making server maintenance and all the things. So, and then we went there to Braunschweig and took all the goods, all the museums in his truck, in his 2 trucks, and gone. Now it is in his warehouse waiting for another museum. So we're looking after somebody who would like to take over this, right? So,
right.
But this guy, he spent on, he's very, 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 he spent around about 200,000 minimum euro on old machines. He has everything. Even typewriting machines from Jack Tramiel at this time also. He have incredible what he have. Yeah.
Well, Petro, it's you've been incredibly generous with your time, and it's been amazing to hear your story. And thank you for coming on. We look forward to seeing you in Germany at the Amiga 40. So thanks again for coming on.
Yes, I will be there. I think I have to hold a speech there. Markus Tillmann, he called me already. So, and my coach will also come, and he will show a lot of old computers.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, I've got my ticket, so I'm looking forward to seeing you, Petro.
We see you soon. Thank you very much for taking care about me today, the old guy. And many, many greetings who are seeing this to my Amiga friends, to my Commodore friends.